So for the past few months, I've been continuing to digest and cross-examine the globe model and what they teach about it versus the plane model. And sometimes, even as long as I've been looking into this, you still have little things occur to you that didn't dawn on you before. I was looking at the sun, and I thought, they say it takes 8 minutes for the light to get here from the sun because it's 93 million miles away. Now, for our sun to look like every other star in the sky, it would have to be 1,000th its size. Let's say 1/10,000th its size. So the sun now, let's imagine, is 10,000 times farther away. So it would be 1/10,000th the size that it appears to us in the sky, which would, for all practical purposes, be identical to every other star we see at night. Now, they teach us that the stars, on average, are 3,000 light years away from us. But if our sun was 10,000 times farther away and looked just like those stars, it takes 8 minutes for the light, they say, to get from the sun to us now. 8 minutes times 10,000 equals 55 days. So you're saying that our sun would look just like every other star if it was 55 light days away, when they teach us that all the stars we see are 3,000 light years away? I don't know. I'm skeptical about that. But it seems like the more people look at this, the more that NASA's getting sensitive. You know, just the other day, that basketball player said that he thinks the Earth is flat, and miraculously, 5 days after that, NASA says, we discovered 7 planets that have water on them just like Earth. Listen to us. Ignore that guy. They're getting desperate. When it was pointed out that you could look at their live feed from the space station and compare it to a live feed from a weather satellite, they were never the same. They'd show you a blue sky over Japan, and then you're looking at the weather and say, well, there's a hurricane over Japan, so that can't be a live feed. They're lying about that. So, you know, they're changing their story, or changing the way that they're presenting information now. They just shut off the ISS. Now they're going to sell it, they said, to some private company. Yeah, whatever. It's all damage control, you know. I was thinking about a lot of the things that we were taught. And believe me, this is the year I'm paying off my student loans. I'm finally paying off the student loans I've been packing around for almost a decade, some of which I used to finance astronomy classes. I understand the official model quite well. So, you know, when people troll me after my video and say, you just don't understand anything, actually, I do. And it doesn't hold up to a cross-examination. Our entire life, we were taught and shown pictures of, remember when they went to the moon in the Saturn rocket and they came back and they landed in the ocean, they splashed down in the capsule, the lander capsule, re-entry capsule, right? Every picture we've seen shows it boring through the atmosphere with the big, highest surface of resistance forwards. That doesn't make sense. Now, they teach us that, and we see all kinds of illustrations of that, and they even have one, I think, in the Smithsonian looking all burnt in like it came in that way when it re-entered, right? But if you throw a dart or a badminton birdie or a paper airplane out of a hot air balloon and you just let it fall, it's always going to fall point first, because gravity, supposedly, is pulling it down, and the only other force acting on it is aerodynamics and wind resistance. And it's always going to fall oriented toward the least resistance. So bullets don't fly backwards. Planes don't fly backwards. Why do ships have the point in the front? Because they cut through the water better, right? But we are supposed to believe that the capsule falls point aft. That doesn't make any sense. You know, it's some 50s sci-fi stuff. And on the subject of gravity, you know, I've reconsidered that too. I heard, I think it was Dubé mentioned that gravity, you know, is actually just a teaching that is used to explain cosmological things and everything that we see with our own eyes on Earth, right? But in reality, buoyancy and density would explain all that. And I had to think about that one. But in reality, it does explain everything. If you take a C-130 and you open the back of it and a truckload of stuff flies out of the back of it. You got bombs falling out of it like they do every day in the Middle East, right? Blocks of wood, balloons, helium balloons, everything just flies out the back of it. The bombs fall straight to the ground. If they hit water, not only do they sink through the air till they hit something solid, they'll sink through the water till they hit something solid. Now, something that's lighter than water, a balloon or a block of wood, sinks through the air, hits the water, stops descending, and floats on top of the water. So somehow gravity is suspended when it hits the water. If a helium balloon flew out of the back of the airplane, it wouldn't go down at all. It would go up. So everything that we actually see in the real world that we live in can be explained by density and simple stratification of buoyancy. That makes sense. But, you know, it's been like 5 months since I've done a video, and I've done a lot of thinking. Periodically I'll stumble on something interesting. You know, they call you a conspiracy theorist if you suggest that they're not being honest with the things that they're showing us, right? NASA. Do you know where the term conspiracy theorist came from? That was a CIA term used in a memo called Countering Criticism of the Warren Report, which was the official report on how JFK got killed. And when people weren't buying it and started asking questions and scrutinizing the report, they said, we have to come up with a term that discredits them, which people can use to mock them. So we'll call them conspiracy theorists. So people who think they're smart when they, oh, I recognize that you're a conspiracy theorist because you believe something outside of an acceptable range of opinions held in my peer group. They're not smart. They're repeating something that the CIA put out there for people to use to silence critical thinkers, or to at least, you know, turn the crowd against them in a mocking sort of way. So anyway, I just think it's interesting watching these things come out in the news too, like this basketball player. You know, he comes out and says, I think the Earth's flat, do your research. Bill Nye actually comes out and counters him, and so does Tyson, the Neil deGrasse or whatever. He comes out and he's also calling him an idiot. And then coincidentally, just a few days after that, NASA comes out and says, don't look at this idiot. We just found 7 planets that have water on them. Wow, just like Earth. It's like a spell that they want to cast. It's so stupid. But people fall for it, and I understand why. You know, I was taught the same thing as everyone else, and I believed it because I'd never cross-examined it properly. But now that I'm looking at it, wow, it's like Swiss cheese. Anyway, I was just thinking about a few things, and you know, don't let it get you down when people call you crazy, because they will. They will. And there's a lot of little things you can point out just to make people think. For example, if you sit a stack of poker chips on the edge of a merry-go-round and you spin it, the poker chips fly off. If you were actually hanging onto a rope and that thing was spinning fast enough, you would be swinging from the merry-go-round, wouldn't you? In fact, if you put a scale in that rope, it would tell you how heavily you were pulling against it, right? So you would actually have like centrifugal weight. Look how centrifugal weights work. Look at a distributor. Look at a clutch on a automatic quad or a chainsaw. That is all centrifugal weights, centrifugal clutches. So here's a question. If I weigh 250 pounds on the equator, well, it has to be the result of the balance between two forces. One, the centrifugal force, which is trying to fling me away because of my weight, so I would become a centrifugal weight, and gravity holding me down. Clearly gravity wins because I'm on the ground and I weigh 250 pounds. But gravity is supposed to be the same everywhere on a planet. So if the world stops spinning, would I weigh more? I should, because if the centrifugal force being applied to me, repelling me from the surface, was, say, 50 pounds, then I should weigh 50 pounds more if the Earth stops spinning, because now the only thing acting on me is gravity, unabated by the centrifugal force, right? Well, why don't we test that out? Tell me, do you weigh the same on the equator as you do on the poles? You couldn't. That'd be impossible because the gravity's the same everywhere, but you'd be lighter on the equator because it's spinning, lifting you, in essence, from the surface and affecting your weight on the scale. But I don't think I've ever seen them show that you weigh less on the poles. Or what, ships float higher out of the water when they go up toward the pole or down toward Antarctica? Give me a break. So there's a million things. Here's another one. So the other night, it was about, I don't know, it was probably close to midnight. I came outside, I looked up at the sky, and I see this super bright star. Actually, it wasn't a star, it was a planet. And I said, that's got to be like Saturn or Jupiter or something. It was pretty bright and it was enormous, and you know. So I pulled out my phone, whoop, put it up there, and I looked at it, and what did it say? Venus. Okay, Venus is bright, right? And then it dawned on me, wait a minute, it's been dark for like 5 hours. So, you know, the sun was here at noon, it was there, it got dark at 7. Now it's on the other side, and Venus is spinning around the sun inside of our circle, and I'm looking out into the dark. So how can I see a planet 5 hours after dark that is way closer to the sun than us when the sun is behind the Earth, on the other side of the planet from me? And I'm looking at freaking Venus in the middle of the sky. I'm just saying. You start looking at things differently when you really understand this. So I would recommend anybody. Oh, so you go to a lot of Facebook pages, Flat Earth Revolution, Flat Earth Truth, Flat Earth this, there's a lot of them. And you have all these guys going on there saying, okay, fine, tell me the Earth is, prove it to me, go. It's like, you got all these trolls going on all these pages, just destroying the integrity of the pages, asking stupid questions and arguing for sport, being really unreasonable and unreceptive to evidence, and having done no research of their own. If anybody who sees this really wants to know, well, I've assembled a playlist for you on this page, and it's called Proponents Documentaries. Watch anything in that list. I've got 20 of the best videos out there, all compiled in a nice, neat list, and you can just watch them one after another. And then, if you want to get on the subject of all the evidence that you believe in, when a flat earther says, no, NASA's full of it, look at my other playlist called Frauds, and just look at those 20 or 30 videos, and look at all the stuff they've put out that if you have, I mean, if you have any critical thinking skills at all, you have to analyze it and say, these people are making stuff up, they're liars. You know, Skiba said something the other day that was good. He was talking about how the movie Gravity was made for $100 million. What could NASA do with billions of dollars every year for the last 50 years? Come on, man. But watch that Frauds playlist if you're skeptical of the claim that NASA is disingenuous. Watch the list. Just go through it and watch all those videos. There's tons of stuff. And then if you want to see the things that are more compellingly leaning towards a flat earth rather than a globe model, watch the playlist called Proofs. I put a bunch of stuff in there. So there's plenty of resources for people to learn from. You don't have to try to find all your information on like Facebook pages and stuff. There's a lot of good information out there. But you have to do your own thinking. And everybody, I think, in the flat earth community really, it boils down to that. They all say the same thing. Do your own thinking. Do your own research. You know, don't take anything for granted anymore. Anyway, I just wanted to just tell everybody that I hadn't just dropped off the planet, right? So, yeah, it's been about 5 months since I put a video out. But I'll get back with you soon. But think about that, because that's what was on my mind today, and I thought I'd share it because it was a great day, and I just wanted to go outside and get some fresh air and push play. So, Luke from Flat Earth Consequences signing off. Nice seeing you guys. Have a good one. So for the past few months, I've been continuing to digest and cross-examine the globe model and what they teach about it versus the plane model. And sometimes, even as long as I've been looking into this, you still have little things occur to you that didn't dawn on you before. I was looking at the sun and I thought, they say it takes 8 minutes for the light to get here from the sun because it's 93 million miles away. Now, for our sun to look like every other star in the sky, it would have to be 1,000th its size. Let's say 1/10,000th its size. So the sun now, let's imagine, is 10,000 times farther away. So it would be 1/10,000th the size that it appears to us in the sky, which would, for all practical purposes, be identical to every other star if it was 55 light days away. When they teach us that all the stars we see are 3,000 light years away, I don't know. I'm skeptical about that. But it seems like the more people look at this, the more that NASA's getting sensitive. You know, just the other day, that basketball player said that he thinks the Earth is flat, and miraculously, 5 days after that, NASA says, we discovered 7 planets that have water on them just like Earth. Let's star we see at night. Now, they teach us that the stars, on average, are 3,000 light years away from us. But if our sun was 10,000 times farther away and looked just like those stars, it takes 8 minutes for the light, they say, to get from the sun to us now. 8 minutes times 10,000 equals 55 days. So you're saying that our sun would look just like every other sun to us. Ignore that guy. They're getting desperate. When it was pointed out that you could look at their live feed from the space station and compare it to a live feed from a weather satellite, they were never the same. They'd show you a blue sky over Japan, and then you're looking at the weather and say, well, there's a hurricane over Japan, so that can't be a live feed. They're lying about that. So, you know, they're changing their story, or changing the way that they're presenting information.